Run, party, repeat. Welcome to the East Coast Adventures Dirt Vert Podcast, where we talk all things running, racing, and training to help you get ready for your next big adventure.
Learn from our successes and our failures, and have fun at the same time. Join us right here every week with inspiring guests who share their captivating tales from the trails. And remember, nobody cares.
Run faster.
David.
And I'm Mike.
And we have ultra runner, coach, and podcaster, Mr. Running Pains, Aaron Saft with us today. And what's funny is when I first got into really running ultras, I ran a few 50Ks, and one of the earlier 50Ks I ran was actually a 50K that Aaron race directed. And you probably started that race too, correct?
I actually took it over from David Faulkner, who lives out that direction. It had been idle for a few years, and somebody said, "Hey, like you should bring this race back." So I communicated with David and revitalized it. I think David put it on for 2, maybe 3 years before I brought it back.
Well, you did an awesome job with it, because it was a fun experience for me, and it was, for most that don't know, it was the Frosty Foot, which is now Solly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Solly.
So same race. Yep. Aaron is the one that was previous race directors before Brian and Gordon. And he was also way ahead of his time on some of the gear that he provided to his runners, because that was, I think this was like pre-COVID, and he was handing out John G. running shirts to all the runners, and I get handed this shirt that's, it's a cool shirt. It had like a zipper in the back on the side, and it was a long sleeve, like I think it was a hoodie, if I remember correctly, like a thin.
It was
yep. Yeah, and it was really cool. But I was like, what is this company, John G? Like, what is this? And now you look at them and it's like, wow. So you were ahead of your time there, Aaron. You had premium gear. But man, it's a pleasure to have you on here. You've been running you have just a very long and decorated running career. And it's cool to see all the stuff that you have done, and also the stuff you're getting ready to do that we'll get into. So before we get into all of that, though, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into running.
Right on. Well, thank you guys for having me and for the invite. Those watching on video, I am driving my truck across the country right now. I've got my camper in tow, and we're heading to Colorado. So you get to enjoy my steering wheel here. But I'm a father, a husband. That's first and foremost in my life, and that's what makes my running so valuable, is my family and my appreciation for them, and they're letting me do these silly things that we do. Then I'm a runner, coach, and as you mentioned, podcaster. I'm a trail maintainer. I plan on race directing in the future again, but my life has really revolved around running. I was a running store owner for a while, so I've done a lot of stuff within the running industry. How I got into this silly, crazy sport of ours was back in 1990. I met a coach who was very influential in my life. About that time, I started in middle school, 8th grade. I started running cross country because I wasn't quite the soccer player my mind told me I was. And the soccer coaches were like, you'd probably be pretty good at running. And I didn't know there was such a thing as competitive running. But I went out for cross country and quickly found, the joy of running and the success that it brought. So I started running back in 1990. I got to run in college for NC State. We finished 3rd in cross country at NCAAs. So I got to see a lot of success in high school, college, and post collegiately. So it's been a fun career thus far, fun ride, if you will.
Man, I didn't realize that you got into ultra running that early. Like, what year was your first ultra?
2008. At the time, Annette Badowski was putting on the New River 50K. So I went to I think it started in Dumfries, Virginia. The race still takes place on the the New River Trail, but that was my first ultra, and I ran that, and then just started to gain distances. It took me until 2016, so 8 years later, to run my first 100, which was a good experience building up to that. I really didn't rush to get in 100, but as you'll kind of hear, there's a theme of like, if I see something that's really cool, like an award, then like that gives me a lot of extrinsic motivation. And the now defunct Beast Series was in full swing in 2016. So I ran David Horton's series in Virginia, which at the time you started with Holiday Lake, Terrapin Mountain, Promised Land, and then the fall you did Grindstone, Mountain Masochist, and Hellgate. So that was your calendar year for the Beast Series.
Wow.
So that's what got me into my first 100, was that trophy.
Wow.
Man, 2008. That was before UltraSignup, correct?
It was, yeah. Some of my stuff is definitely not going to be on there. I won the Trail Marathon US Championships in 2007. So I've been trail running for a long time, probably around 2003. I started trail running, not ultra distance, but sub ultra. There was a great company called Bad to the Bone, and they still put on the Belmonte 50K and 25K. That was part of that company, but they put on a ton of races. My wife went to medical school at Virginia Tech, so we were in Southwest Virginia for 4 years, and that's really where I got my trail running start, if you will.
Man, that's pretty cool. It's cool to see people that started in the sport. I didn't start running ultras till probably like 2016, 2017.
2016, roughly, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere right in there.
And I mean, even then it's questionable, because my first 50K was the pistol. Like, it's basically like a marathon.
But it wasn't. I just don't know if it just wasn't big in our area. Because when I hear your stories, I'm just like, wow, all that stuff was going on, and maybe we were oblivious to it. But we had to create so much with East Coast Adventures that we were getting discouraged that there wasn't more around us. But
sure.
I don't know. Like, even if we've looked towards Knoxville and stuff like that, there wasn't these epic trail races around.
Not anything like there is now.
No, the sport it's grown so much, but it was quite different back then. You hear the stories. It was like paper registrations, race day registration. Like you said, there was no UltraSignup. Maybe you were on active.com. That's like, that was the technology.
I remember active. I remember active.
Yeah. So
get on there and check my results on all my races.
Right. Yeah. So that was the site at the time. Everybody was using active when that opened up. But a lot of it, like I said, you just had paper registration. Day of, you bring cash or check, before the accepting credit cards and remote locations possibilities. So and now that it's rare that you can find race day registration at a trail race. But yeah, it was a different time. But certainly, it was very enjoyable. Like, it really kind of began my true passion for being a part of the trails and doing things for the trails. So I'm grateful for those experiences, for sure.
Yeah, and it's cool to see that you go back that far running, because we had Harvey Lewis on, like, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, and he said something that really shocked me, and you having history that goes back that far running, just kind of shocked me too. But one of the things Harvey said, and you're probably not too far off, I wouldn't think, but Harvey, everybody knows him now, but one of the things he said that really, really shocked me was, he said, most people don't know this, but I started running before, I've been running longer than Scott Jurek. and he's like, people just didn't know. And I was like, wow, man. I was like, I didn't even think about that, but that's crazy. Yeah. And, and it's cool to see, like, you were basically like starting UltraSignup. Your races were getting logged like when it first started. So like, you go all the way back to the beginning of UltraSignup, and then, active. But you've probably seen trail running change so much.
Yes. Yeah.
It changed a lot in the last 10 years, but geez,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
saw it change for like the last, what, 20 years probably?
Yes. It's, almost 25 years. Yeah. It's, I mean, I I love some of the changes, and I can't say that I'm a fan of all of them. I try to steer myself towards lesser commercial events these days. I find kind of the down roots, like kind of homegrown events, a lot more my speed these days. Whereas like when I went to UTMB, the experience of UTMB, while amazing, of course, it just felt very commercial, and I don't enjoy the experience of a commercial. If I want to do something commercial, I'll do a marathon, a road marathon. But it feels like a lot of like what we're seeing these days, especially with now the live streaming and stuff. It's like I don't go to these places to hear a drone flying overhead and get live footage, like that kind of, it takes away from my experience, at least. So like watching Western States, while I appreciate the fact that I can watch these guys running, it also kind of it feels like it takes a piece away of what this sport truly was and embodies, being out in nature and experiencing nature as it should be. Whereas we're bringing so much tech into it, it feels like we're diminishing that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's twofold. Like we get to enjoy watching people race now, which
Yes.
is something that you never thought you would ever get to see.
Right.
But
Yes.
it definitely has its pros and cons.
Yeah, for sure.
And you've
For
probably
sure.
even seen, I mean, just in general, just like gear. I mean, there probably was not even a decent
Yeah.
running
Yeah.
pack back in the day when you started.
No.
Like it was probably
No,
looked like
I
a
can.
JanSport backpack with a water bottle
Yeah.
holder. Yeah.
Right. That's I think back, and I was doing actually that Belmonte race, and I was doing the 50K, and my strap broke, and I get into the aid station like holding it like this, and I'm like, I'm asking the volunteers, anybody have any extra safety pins? Because I was like using my bib safety pins, and it wasn't holding it, with the weight. And they're like, no, we don't have any. I was like, screw it, because I was trying to go for the win, so I just ditched my pack, which was stupid because I needed the fluids. And I was like, because we were coming back through there, I was like, I'll grab it on my way back. See if you can rig it together, and I'll just grab it on the way back. And I got back, and I'm like, did you get it? And they're like, we threw it away. I'm like, So it was, but back then, yes, it was very, like, UD Ultimate Direction was coming out. They had like the best handheld on the market, which is like basically a bicycle 20-ounce bottle with like a strap over your hand. But it was quite different back then. And shoes, oh my God, shoes have come such a long way. I think about what we used to run in, and like I ran for Innovate for a long time, and they were the ones that really broke in and kind of made more of a race shoe, if you will. I initially started with La Sportiva and ran for La Sportiva and asked them, are you going to come out with a lighter weight shoe that we can actually race in? Because again, when I started, I was sub-marathon. I was trying to make US team for the mountain running team, and they're like, no, we're not going that direction. So I talked, I knew the Innovate team captain, and I asked about picking them up, and their shoes were just like night and day from anything else that was out there. Now of course you have your wealth of options as to what you can choose, but yeah, just to see where footwear was and where it is now, it's incredible. I remember selling Montrails that were almost like hiking boots. They like basically made a low cut almost hiking boot into like their trail runner. That was their trail runner, the Vitesse, and the Masochist. Like I remember these shoes. We had them up on our shoe wall when we first started, and I'm like, wow, it really has come a long way. Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, even with that, like shoe technology now, just not even a trail shoe, but just shoe technology for trail shoes is insane. Like now they're coming out with carbon plates for,
oh my gosh, yeah,
for trail running. So it's pretty cool.
I mean, the watches, like we didn't have GPS watches back then. There was no Strava, there was no real tracking your distance, and then
Nike Run Club, baby.
right?
Hey,
And
so whenever I had to get off there, I was like, man, I said, I don't want to lose my stuff. So, but nobody supported it. So,
yeah, for real. And then, the headlights, I mean, it's just, we have like technology has just really changed our sport. It really has. And it's great in that regard. I love the fact that, we can have all these things that keep us safer, keep us moving quickly. It really has changed the sport as well, in a good way. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, nutrition has
Oh
been,
gosh. Yes.
I mean, geez,
Yes.
just the last 5 years in nutrition has really changed because,
Yes.
before we had nutrition, but we had like goos and stuff
Yep.
like that. And I'm not knocking goos, but
Sure.
man, this stuff now tastes way better than a goo.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane. I mean, you go on to something like the feed and it's just like overwhelming. You're like, what do I get? But it is nice that we have so many options and you can kind of pick through it and get individual packets so you can try it for sure. That's what I always tell my athletes, like, get a smattering, try it, see what you like, and just have your A, B, and C options for race day. So for sure. Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about, so, your very first race that I see on UltraSignup is that New River Trail race in Fry's, Virginia, the 50K. And I think that's when you were talking about.
Yes, that was.
Was that your very first ultra?
That was. Yep, that was my first ultra. What was that? 2008. 2008. Right?
And
yeah.
You won it.
Yeah.
3 hours and 25 minutes. That's a smoking fast time for a 50K trail race. So New River Trails, yeah, I guess it's more of like a rail trail race.
It is. Yeah. It's very similar to like what Yeti runs on. That same kind of idea. It's very similar. It's in the same vicinity. And I had run the trail marathon championships that I talked about. I ran 2:30 for the trail marathon champs the year before. And that was October of the year before. And I was like, I really think I want to try 50K. So, I have a road background. So I was like, well, let's try something, flat and fast for the first one. And I found about New River and I was like, yeah, that sounds like, right up my alley. So, yeah, it was interesting. I remember drinking Boost shakes. Like I had Boost shakes to drink. I had these like little, I had the Ultimate Direction handheld. That was like, I was running with that with probably Gatorade in it or something. There wasn't many hydration options on the market. And then I had my goo gels, because that's what I used for marathoning at the time was goo gels. And my wife would pop up along the course and hand me a new bottle, and it was it was cool to go past. I remember thinking, because they had the trail is marked with pylons and it marks the miles that you were going. So, in my head, I was tracking the mileage and I saw a pylon coming and I was like, that's mile 27. That's like the furthest I've ever been. I remember that thought going through my head and I'm like, wow, I still have 4 miles to go. I think I feel okay. So, but it was that thought went through my head. Like, this is the furthest I've ever gone, and I remember thinking, man, this is a whole new experience. And not that it was dramatically different. It's because it's 5 miles longer, but at the same time, it was like a mental barrier, right? You're kind of busting through a new distance. And that was pretty cool. And I remember finishing and telling my wife, I'll never run a 100-miler. I swear to God, I'll never run a 100-miler. And so when I signed up for that one in 2016, yeah, she was like, yeah, I'll never run a 100-miler, huh? I was like, oh, well, I'll never run a 200-miler. And then, what was it, 2022? Yeah, 2022. I ran Bigfoot, and she's like, don't say anything. I don't want to hear about any other distances. I don't want to. So, yeah.
Was there a learning? So you had ran marathons, so running a 50K wasn't probably a big difference for you.
No. Training wise, I just bumped up the mileage a little bit, it was, like I said, it was fine. I mean, I could feel the fatigue like usual. I mean, I was clicking, training paces, I was running 6:30, 6:45. So running whatever that average pace was. I was like, wow, this feels pretty sustainable, like 7-minute pace, whatever it was, I was like, this isn't so bad. But I definitely, when I got to the finish, I was like, yep, that hurt.
So how about like your first 50? And if I'm looking at this right, and maybe there's a different one that you've done.
Cayuga, right? Cayuga.
Let's see. Yep, Cayuga Trails, 50 miler in New York.
Yeah. So that was the 50-mile U.S. champs. I grew up in New York, south of Ithaca, where they host it. But I'd heard some really cool things about that park, and for sure, like anybody that has a chance, they have a 50K now as well. It is beautiful because you run through a gorge, and it's rocks. So there's rock steps to go up on top of the gorge. You run along the river that goes through the gorge on these like rock paths. It's so beautiful. Such a neat experience. There's waterfalls all over the place. But again, I was there to compete, right? Like I wanted to really compete at that level and kind of see where I could place. And it being my first 50, I was running with this. I'd have to look at the results to tell you. He finished right behind me, but he passed me like 3 times. And the last time he passed me, I was like, man, like, I can't believe he's passing me again. So the finish has a nice downhill to it. And I saw him and I was like, oh, it's on, so I come running up on him and he's like, dear God, you don't give up. And, so we made a really hard push to the finish. And like I said, I did end up getting him, but it was, that was a whole new experience because I had gone from 50K to 50 miles, right? So that was a pretty big jump for me in distance. And it wasn't my first mountain race, like it wasn't my first race with like elevation gain. Living in the Asheville area, I did like Art Loeb and a lot of stuff like that, the shut-in and all, so I've experienced a lot of mountain running prior to going over there, but it was a new sensation to feel that level of fatigue because that's something I really hadn't experienced to that point. Was the not only the fatigue during the race but the post race fatigue. that was a humdinger. Like the next day and 2 days after, just my legs were just absolutely annihilated. So that took a little bit to get used to and work through. Of course, we all have that runner's amnesia where we forget about that and sign up for the next event. But yes, it was quite an awesome event. I really, Ian Golden has done a lot for that area and for trail running. He was the RD. I think he still is. But what a great event. It was a really great experience and encouraged me to want to do more. So I really enjoyed that. Absolutely.
Did you experience, like, as you went up in distances, did you experience like any stomach issues or any new like muscle fatigue that you weren't used to because I mean, you went from 50K, 50 mile and eventually 100 miles. I'm just curious, like, was there sudden differences that you quickly realized?
As we were kind of talking about just a few minutes ago, nutrition was something that was more of an unknown, right? Like doing 50 miles, doing 100 miles, there wasn't really a lot that said like, well, here's what you should do, right? Like it was more experimentation. So I actually talked about this with my wife not too long ago. Like when I did my first 100 at Grindstone, we really didn't have much of a plan. I came in, I think we had some like chicken and rice soup that I like drank down. I had a few gels that I would eat in between. And I just really survived off of the aid stations and just ate a ton at the aid stations. So like, it hasn't been until recently. So, I'm hitting level 49 this year. And I would say probably when I turned 47 is when, my stomach really started to give me some troubles. It was the year I did the Grand Slam is where I really started to experience troubles. I had run the Bigfoot the year before and I had no troubles, but the following year in the Grand Slam, that's when my stomach troubles really began because I was trying to do more per hour, eat more carbs per hour, or drink more. I'd been working with a dietitian, and it just, the high carb wasn't working for me. It was just too much on my GI. So I had to kind of find that in between, what really works for me. So we've been working on that. That's when my digestive issues really began, is when I really tried doing the high carb, and it just wasn't for me. Even with practicing, I would practice in all my runs, I would try doing it. But every time I got into a race around even mile 15, then I would start developing stomach issues. But early on, I just didn't eat enough to get digestive issues. I remember getting to mile 85 of Grindstone, and a friend, he handed me a PB&J, a bagel, and a burger. And he's like, eat all of this. And I did, because I knew better. I didn't know any better. So I ate all of it, and it fueled me. Like I actually had a really good finish. But I remember having a tantrum at the last aid station with my wife. She was there waiting for me, and I've told this story before, but I got into the aid station, and second place had just left the aid station, and I said, I need some gummy bears and some Coke in my bottle. And she's like, you just drop your shit and go. He's right there. Like my wife gets competitive, and like
I love her
would
already.
never swear. I would never
I thought
swear.
the story was going to go the complete opposite way, right?
No, but she's so, she's like, drop it and go. He's right there. And I was like, I'm not leaving without a gummy bears and some Coke. And so like they got me the gummy bears and Coke. I was like, thanks. And then I took off, and Caleb Denton was in second, and unfortunately he was having some hip problems. I caught up to him, and I said, let's just finish this thing together, because we had been going back and forth the whole race. And he's like, no, man, you need, he knew I was in the B series. He's like, you need the time. Chris Roberts he was in second place in the B series behind me. So, he's like, you need the time on Chris. So, just go. So anyhow, but yeah, I just didn't know any better. I honestly, I remember just like getting into aid stations and just like collecting things, and just running out of the aid station with like handfuls of food and just eating it on the trail, because I just didn't carry as much. But yeah, I mean, being younger and dumber, I think had its positive its positives. Where now, being older and hopefully a bit wiser, it's becoming a bit more trying to problem solve a lot more often. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit more forgiving when you're younger. Some of the
Yes.
stuff now, I'm like, oh,
Yes.
I'm glad
Yeah.
I'm glad I know that now, because it probably would DNF a race.
Yeah. And I think my secret that I had to figure out is that I don't want to do as much too early. Like, I don't want to load up too early. Like, I don't want to go for that high carb intake too early. And it's kind of like what we found out about Killian last year at Western States. He started off with a lower carb amount and actually more protein and fat early in his race. And as the race progressed, he kind of gradually switched over to more carbohydrate as he got more into calorie deficit and needed more fuel, which is what I'm finding as an older athlete now, is that I need to start off a little bit easier on the consumption, and gradually work into it as I get more into a deficit. So, it's interesting learning your body, in that regard, what's working, what's not, what's enough, what's not. Especially since every race is different. These races here that I'm going to are going to be at high altitude, which obviously throws another kink into it, right? So it's always something different. So that goes back to what I was saying earlier about telling my athletes, you got to have options, right? Like I think Jason Koop put out a really good visual of having a target, and your bullseye is your A option, and then you've got your second ring, and that's your B option, and then you got your third ring, and that's your C option. And for each one of those, you should have multiple options, right? So you should have a sweet, a sour, savory, like have those different options for each ring. So when you get to later in the race, you're like, dang, I can't take another sweet thing, but something savory sounds good, and then you can just reach in your pack and grab something different. That's really been beneficial, and sometimes you forget that. It's it's amazing that like you learn all these lessons and then you don't apply them. You know, that's that's human nature, right? Like we forget about these things, and you're like, why didn't I do that? Right? It's so I still make a lot of mistakes, so it happens. But you know, this next race, I've really tried to dial in my plan and my nutrition and have those options. So hopefully, I don't run into those problems.
Well, we're only human, so
Yes.
You know, and that's the thing I've noticed the most about race day. Like you can have the best training block and the worst training block. It doesn't matter. Race day can just be a whole different ball game as far as like how you wake up and feel that morning. And, you know, sometimes you just have to take the day for what it gives you and enjoy it.
Yep.
You know?
No, absolutely. Yeah. That's what I try to do each time.
Yeah. You know, I mean, there's some races that like everything clicks and you could push and you have a good day, but you can't expect that every time. Sometimes the race is just going to be hard. I don't care how hard you've trained.
Yep. That's for sure. That's for sure. Absolutely.
And you got one race on here that I have heard of, but I've never really got to talk to many people that have done it. The Canadian Death Race.
Oh my gosh. Love that race. So that was part of that 2016 year. If you look through 2016, I don't know what I was thinking, but UltraSignup was very grateful for all my money because I did so much racing that year. But Canadian Death Race was amazing. I wanted to get something over 100K before Grindstone. So I wanted to experience something longer, you know, before I went into Grindstone. Canadian Death Race is 125K. So roughly about 75 miles for the metrically challenged. It's in this beautiful part of Canada, and it is set up like so awesomely because everyone even the town itself. So, you know, like to paint a picture of the town, it's an old mining town that the mine shut down. So this race generates so much revenue for this community that really needs it. So you go into the town, and the whole kind of idea behind it is they're going to give you shit the whole race, right? Like you're not going to finish. You suck. Like that's what the volunteers going to tell you. So like I get there and I go for a run in the town. The town is Grand Cache. It's outside of Alberta. It's really beautiful. And so I go into the town, to the grocery store, and you know they've got the Canadian accent, so I don't want to butcher it, but they're like, "Oh, you're running the death race, eh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm running the death race." "Oh, where are you from?" And I'm like, I'm from North Carolina." "Oh, you won't finish." So like the grocery store is hitting me. I go for a run, and this woman's gardening, and same scenario. "Oh, where are you from?" And I'm like, "I'm from North Carolina." "Oh, you're gonna die." So it's like she's like, "I'll see you at aid station 2. So sure enough, I see her at aid station 2. She's like, "Oh, you're in second place. Look, you're gonna die." So all of the aid stations are the same way. So I got to like mile 40, and I see my family. This is the first time my kids are actually getting to crew for me. 2016. So my son is 9 years old. My daughter is 5, and they're just super psyched. They're like, "Dad, you're in second. You're rocking it. The guy in front of you is not far. Like, you got a huge climb coming up. Just, get up to him." So I leave the aid station, and I start down this like double track, and I come around this bend, and I see this big brown head, and the hair on my neck stands up. It's a huge brown bear. She stands up and she towers over me. Gotta be like, I don't know, God, 10 feet tall. She was huge. And I'm like, holy crap. And I mean, she is literally, what, maybe 6 feet away from me, because the trail's not that big, and she starts doing this head roll, which at the time I had no clue that means she's about to annihilate me. But I see above her she's got 2 cubs, and I was like, oh God, like I'm in the worst situation ever. So like I don't, like, they don't tell you what to do, right? Like it's like they don't tell you carry bear spray. They don't tell you what to do if you encounter them. They're like, yeah, you'll probably encounter them, but this is the death race, right? So I just put my head down. I'm like, "Oh, it's okay. It's okay." I'm like talking in this like really hushed voice. "Everything's okay." And just kind of put my hands up. I was like, "I mean no harm. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go." So I like make my way past her. And, there's another bend right there, and I just take off sprinting. Here we are 40 miles in, and my adrenaline was so high. I would have loved to seen my split on that mile because I was gone. So anyway, I went without incident. And the death race is really cool because they do the solo race, the 125K, but they also do a relay. So you got relayers out there too. So I'm going up the climb, and you get into Alpine, and I can see down below me there's some relayers coming up. And I said, "Hey, did you guys see that bear?" And they're like, "No." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I was the only one that saw this bear, but oh man, I thought my moment was over. If much like Sean actually got the idea for the Georgia death race from the Canadian death race, and what you do in the Canadian death race is you carry a coin in your pocket, and I've had nightmares about this coin for months. Like, because if you lose the coin, you're done. Your race is over. Because when you get to mile 66, this guy comes out dressed as death. He's supposed to be carrying, which, you're supposed to give him. He's the ferryman to get you across this river. It's a glacial river. There's no way you can cross this without a boat. So if you lose that coin, your race is over. So I get there, and I put it in this pocket. I mean, this pocket was like sewn and doubled up. And I mean, I had this thing like secured, and I could hear it rattling the whole time. So I knew it was there. So I rip open this pocket. I'm like, "Take the damn coin." And so give him the coin, and you get a jet boat across, which was super cool. And, you make your way, as you can see on UltraSignup, I ended up staying in second. I finished second, and your reward, your finisher's prize is the coin. You get the coin. So I got the coin back, and it's in this really cool case. It says Aaron Saft 2016 solo finisher. They do it overnight. They inscribe it and make these. So it's really nice. It was a really cool experience. Such a cool course, just so beautiful up there. Really, I mean, I got in thankfully before a storm rolled in. They had to pull off 40 something people because of a hailstorm, because of that exposure up there. It's just there's nowhere to hide. So people were trying, there's one shelter up there, and people were just trying to hide under it, and they had to pull 40 something people off that summit. So it's a pretty crazy race. There's mountain lions, there's the brown bears, obviously. You run right through a dump, and they're like, "You're going to see some brown bears in the dump." And that's not where I saw the bear, but it really is a cool experience. And they remark the course every year because it's a walking trail. People, they walk this loop and various parts of it. So they just leave the markings up for people. So it is so well marked at this point. There's just orange ribbon in every tree, so you're just it's really hard to get lost, but such a cool race. I highly recommend that. We had such a great time up there, and it's super near Banff. So we went up to Banff afterwards and experienced Banff. So it's a pretty cool trip. So yeah, one of the ones I highly recommend.
Yeah, dude, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. I had never.
That's where Sean got the Georgia Death Race idea from. That makes
Yes.
sense because he does that kind of with the spike.
Yes.
Looks like he did that race as well.
I've done Georgia Death Race. I think I have my most DNFs at the Georgia Death Race. I have one finish. We swept the last 50K for him this year, so he gave us entries for next year. So we'll see if we can we can get one more finish. I think it'll still make me, if I finish, it would still make me 2 for 4. So I think I'd be batting 50%. So, but it'd be better than 33% right now. I'm 1 for 3. But yeah, the Georgia Death Race, carrying that spike, I always tell Sean, I was like, you got to do something different with the spike, right? There's purpose to the coin. There's this purpose of giving this coin so you can, get your ferry across. There has to be a purpose to it. And he's like, it's just you're suffering through. I was like, I think there's enough suffering taking place that I don't have to carry this damn spike for 74 miles or whatever it is. But yeah, that one, I love the Georgia mountains. I just did Fierce Dragon, this January. And that was a wonderful experience. Perry puts on a fantastic event. I really tip my hat off to him because I can't imagine he makes any money off of that race, but he really does a great job for the runners. So that was a great experience. Really, really enjoyed that race. That was pretty cool too. So that Vogel slash Duncan Ridge Trail, it's a really cool place in the mountains there of Georgia. So yeah, absolutely.
There's some rugged mountains for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you did, you've done Mount Mitchell, High Lonesome, Wasatch 100. You talked about Bigfoot 200.
Yeah.
You've done Leadville 100, Western States 100. So you've done race Hard Rock. Let's not skip over that one. You've done Hard Rock, Olmsted.
Yep. UTMB. UTMB won't be on there, but I've done UTMB. Took a crack at Tour de France last year. I fell. 40 miles is like my nemesis right now. I fell just before 40 miles, cracked my scapula and 3 ribs and had a concussion. Somehow was able to hike out to the aid station. I think it was on pure adrenaline, but I got in and the medic took one look at me and he snipped my bracelet. And that was the end of my Tour de France. But yeah, I've been fortunate, to do a lot of the big races that, everybody's after. And, everybody asks me like, what's your favorite? And I would say Hard Rock. I love the course. I love the atmosphere of the aid stations. It's just a beautiful place, and I'm hoping Ouray will be okay. I doubt it given the state that Ouray is in at the moment, but I really look forward to at some point racing back in the San Juans, be it Ouray or hopefully get into Hard Rock and do that one again. But yeah, Hard Rock is simply just it's a wonderful event.
Of all the races you've done, which one is your favorite? That's probably a really hard question to answer.
Yeah.
You've done so many races, but like, which one's your favorite to you and why? Like, why is it
Yeah. Gosh, that is a good one. There's been so many experiences, and I really hesitate to like say there's one, because I love being with my friends and my family. When I have them as crew and pacers, it just makes the experience just exponentially better. Like my wife wasn't at the last race at Scout Mountain, and I missed that. Like it was hard, like she's usually there, and it was different. I really go back and I think about that, and I think Bigfoot was probably one of my favorite experiences as a race. And simply because of the course itself and who I had around me. I had all my best friends around me. I had my family, it was just one of those events where the duration of time that you're out there just creates so many unique experiences with so many people you care about. So, I would probably say Bigfoot was probably my favorite race because of all that. I just think about it, and there wasn't a time where I can think like, God, I hated that moment. Is like I definitely experienced a lot through that, but at the same time, it was just wonderful to be with all the people I care about so much, and knowing that they were there to support me in this. It truly was a special event. So yeah, I think that would be my favorite.
Yeah, the people you have around you definitely makes the experience better or worse, and having the people around you that are your friends and that, know what you want and know how to crew you, it makes a huge difference. And especially on something that's a multi-day race, that already makes it more special there, because 200 miles is not easy for anybody. 100 miles is hard enough. 200 miles is a whole different journey.
Yeah.
So kudos to you for doing the 200 that you said you would never do.
The funny thing was, I had gotten into Western States through the raffle. So I knew a year in advance that I was going to run Western States, but I needed a qualifier. And, I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? And, Bigfoot popped up. So I did Bigfoot 200 as my qualifier for Western States. Which was, it was interesting, because I was really having a hard time picturing like what would excite me. I had done hard rock in 21, and like after that it's like, well, what's going to excite me? And Bigfoot, it gave me that excitement. So absolutely.
So tell us about, real quick, what are you getting ready to do now? You're signed up for the Rocky Mountain Slam.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
The Rocky Mountain Slam consists of, and I can't remember if it's 8 or 10 races that you can choose, but you have to do 4 of them, and the last one has to be the bear. That's your finale. So they're all races that I really love and admire. I chose some new ones. Scout Mountain was supposed to be one of those, but I ended up being anemic, which I recently found out and am addressing. But I also got severely dehydrated, and medic pulled me again at mile 40. So there's my nemesis. So Scout Mountain was off the list. So here I'm driving to, I'm going to hopefully, again, it depends on the fires. Ouray is the next one on my calendar. If that gets canceled, then the slam I have to message them and figure out, is there a way that I can still finish it? Because there's no real races that I can really get into at this point. So I don't know. We'll see. But the rest of my slam would be Crazy Mountain, the Wyoming Range 100, and then of course finishing with the bear. I'm driving out. It's July 1st. I'm in Colorado now. I plan on acclimating and hopefully preparing for Ouray if it happens. But if not, then I'll run up to Montana and hopefully get in Crazy Mountain, because I need a qualifier this year for hard rock to put back in. But yeah, that's the idea. Again, they're just all races that excite me. I love being in the mountains. I love challenging courses. It's altitude is of course challenging in and of itself, but it's just areas that I really enjoy going to. I've raced in Wyoming. I did Bighorn, which is also a part of the slam, but I was trying to do races that I haven't done previously. But I've never raced in Montana, so I'm really excited about that too.
So that's pretty cool. What do you get if you complete the Rocky Mountain Slam?
They give you this ornate, almost looks like a cigar box, but it's a wooden box that they make. It's carved with the Rocky Mountain Slam and the races that you did to complete it, with the race logos, and then it fits your 4 buckles from the slam, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. The Grand Slam gave us a trophy. It's it's the head of I think it's a falcon. It's pretty cool. And that's the Grand Slam. I did Western States. I was supposed to do Vermont, but that was the year of the flooding, so we were allowed to substitute with a race, and I went up and did the Badger. So I raced the Badger, and then I did Leadville, and then you finish that one. You have to finish with Wasatch for that slam. So that was definitely a challenging finish. Leadville took out I think there were I can't remember, 9 or 12 people in the Grand Slam at Leadville, and only 2 of us finished Leadville. So it took out a ton of people from the Grand Slam, which was crazy. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, a new challenge. It drives my wife crazy. She wishes I wouldn't do any more slams. So I promised her this would be the last, but we all know how good my promises are.
So if you don't do the Grand Slam again, you're just going to sign up for a 300 miler?
I want to go back to Tour de France next year.
There you go.
And the other one I have my eye on is the Divide up in Canada. The 200, that one looks amazing. So that one excites me too. So yeah, Tour de France and the Divide are kind of 2 more on my bucket list. But yeah, if I don't get to do this Rocky Mountain Slam this year, yeah, I'll keep moving forward and just get past it, because we did a lot to make this happen. financially, these slams are super expensive. You can imagine logistically trying to travel and do everything. And that's why we bought this truck and the camper, was to kind of reduce those expenses. So, we're basically, the family is going to fly out, but then we're going to stay in the camper. So just trying to control how much we're spending. Obviously it's an expense, but it's something we can use long term, so it's something to consider as well. These things aren't cheap.
No, they're not.
Yeah. The one thing you do get with this versus a widget or something you could buy is at least you get an experience that you and the family will always remember, and that's kind of cool.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. My kids they're getting older. My son's in college now. But he watched Western States live. Because we went back last year. I got in again last year and DNF'd at mile 40. And,
I was actually following you on that race.
So, oh my God. It was awful. I've never experienced cramping like that in my life. And, the volunteers like, dude, this is Western States. And I was like, I know, like, I can't move. I would cramp in my legs and then I'd go back and then my stomach would cramp and I turn to the side and vomit and then my leg would cramp. It was like, I was in that aid station, they're like, he's got 20 minutes and he's got to be out of here. And I'm still cramping like you wouldn't believe. So they tried to get me up and I couldn't even walk. And they're like, do you want to try to go? I'm like, and we were about to go into the canyons. I'm like, no, no, I don't want to try to go down in the canyons and have somebody come rescue me. As much as I wanted to continue on, it just wasn't physically possible. So, I remember, I always see that if you guys have watched Unbreakable, that Western States video, Gordy Ainsley, he always famously said, I knew I could do one more thing, and that was take one more step. And that resonated. I heard that. I wanted that to happen, but I just couldn't take one more step. So I knew, my race was unfortunately over. You never want that to happen at a bucket list race like that. Thankfully I have a buckle, but it just was, you value that spot, and it hurt to DNF that one for sure. But
it goes back to the conversation we were having in the very beginning of this episode, which is sometimes race day just does not go any way you would ever imagine. And,
exactly.
We've all been there.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes. My last event, I trained for this event for like 3.5-4 months, and 3 hours in, complete calf cramps, and I'm like, I've not had calf cramps in years. And I'm like, okay, well, here we are. It's going to be a long day.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Just for me, Western States would be like, with my job and my family and everything, like Western States would be epic. I've heard her and my wife. She knows about our racing. She doesn't fully understand Western States. So like, hey, we're probably going to have to go in debt, but we're going. If I ever get in, like, listen, we're going. One way or the other. Like, the cost is not even going to be looked at.
Yes.
But you do hate to get to something like that, and it just be like, man, something goes south. It just breaks you.
I know, it's just, I know. And, you try to pinpoint and sometimes you can't, that's the thing, is like, you can't figure out what you did wrong. You're like, you go through your head and you're like, I did everything I was supposed to do, and it just wasn't my day. Which, it's hard. But it happens. And, it takes a little while to heal from, Scout Mountain definitely took a little while, especially mentally, to kind of recoup from, because, I knew it was like, we got to, it was about about 20, let me think here, do the math, about mile 26. And there was a water-only aid station. They had hiked it in. Now, keep in mind, there's only 100 people in the 100-miler, and this aid station is solely for the 100-miler. But they were running out of water, and I'm nowhere near the back of the pack at this point. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's still a ton of people coming in, and we're down to less than half a jug, so basically like 2 gallons for the rest of the race. And I was like, God, I can't fill up my pack in good conscience, knowing there might be people behind me that may need it more than me. But then, of course, it ended up being me that needed that fluid. So it just, the powers that be were not playing to my favor that day. But and then on top of that, having anemia, that was definitely part of it. I could understand, like, now that I know that I'm anemic, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. That kind of jives with how I was feeling. So it's but again, it takes a little while to get past it. I think I always talk to my athletes and say, we have a grieving phase. Let yourself grieve, go through all of those emotions. Let yourself be upset, let yourself be angry, get through it. It's healthy. That's how we move forward. And then I try to have a conversation when they've gotten past that and they were able to process and just say, hey, let's make a list of things that went right, things that went wrong, things we can change. Let's talk about all those things. So I suggest that to every runner, be able to process. And then after you're done processing, go through and kind of write down all those things and kind of make a plan. And if you don't have ideas as to how to resolve those, talk to people, talk to your training partner, talk to your friends, talk to, the community. That's what's so great about our community. We have so many different ways to connect with our community. So use your resources. Absolutely.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron, let's switch gears just a minute here. I want to ask you a question that we ask all of our runners and
Sure.
or all of our guests, I guess I should say. I shouldn't just say runners. We've had other people on here besides just runners. But
yeah.
Why do you run? Why do all of this? Why drive across the country, get a camper? Like, why do you, what keeps you running at the end of the day? Like, why do you do it?
Yeah. So running is, I guess, an embodiment of what brings joy to my life. The adventures that it brings, the memories that brings, the connections that I make. As I kind of talked about, having the connections that I have with my friends and my family, there's nothing more valuable to me than those connections. They just seem to become deeper and deeper with those people that are involved in my circle of running, be it my family. My kids see the trials and tribulations that I go through. It gives them insight as to things can be hard, and we have to deal with them, and it teaches them not only a lot of life lessons, but it teaches them about themselves and about their father. It deepens my love for my wife because of her compassion for me and for her caring nature and allowing me to do these things. It just gives me deeper purpose for my runs, having the capacity to share this with my partner and know that she's fully supportive of it. My love for my friends just grows deeper with each experience because you all know, everybody that's listening probably knows, when you're out on a run, there is nothing that is held back. You say things that you probably wouldn't say in a normal conversation. Right. And it just makes your relationship that much deeper. So it's those experiences and those deepening of relationships that really mean something to me and keep me driving to keep running and experiencing and adventuring and I heard a great quote yesterday is like, I want to go into the grave sliding sideways and saying, son of a bitch, that was one hell of a ride. So that's the I guess the my 10-cent answer.
There's a lot to that and everything. I think I'm level 49 also, and so, as you would say, and so you just I think me and David both, and then a lot of us, you can talk to your kids and they get to the point to like they just think of like they know you're not going to complain, or if you do, they know that you're capable of it. They don't even get impressed anymore with what we do. They're just like, I'm gonna go 100 miles today. They're like, okay, well, like, what are we having for dinner tomorrow? Those don't even bat an eye. It's just we build ourselves up.
I know.
Like I said, we don't do it for the glory, but they just think of we don't want no pity from anyone.
I mean, the cool thing is they want to do these things, which is cool to me. They're both runners. My kids are both runners.
That's awesome.
So it's like, they want to, my son's like I said, he was watching Western States the other day. He wants to do Western States someday. My daughter wants to, experience ultras someday. So it's really cool that, they've been around this in their entire lives and they don't hate it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the fact that you haven't scared them away from it means a lot, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It means I did something right, I guess.
Well, we got some questions for you now, Aaron. So I'm going to turn that
Sure.
over to Mike. I've been pulling them together here, and I just sent them all to him. So took me a minute to
Okay.
get them all off Instagram and Facebook to get over here. But if any more pops up, Mike, I'll send them to you real quick.
I get to do the honor of what Matt usually does. So, anyways, a couple reader questions have come in. Why do they call you Mr. Running Pains?
It's actually MR Running Pains. MR stood for a number of things. It was kind of a joke between my family and I. We used to, joke around about MR ducks, MR not ducks, CM wings, MR ducks. So it was kind of a callback to my family and I as kind of a joke. MR Running Pains. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense now. But it's changed now. I'm under a different. I use Running is Life. A call back to Ted Lasso and Danny. Football is life, because I think that is more of a summation of where I'm at now. Whereas like MR Running Pains was when I was putting on events. Now I'm primarily a coach, and I didn't want the negative connotation of pain associated with coaching. That's not what I was trying to portray. So I changed over to Running is Life. But yeah, MR Running Pains is definitely a huge part of my history.
Well, I'm glad you clarified that. I always thought it was Mr. Running Pains, because even when I ran Frosty-Foot that year, you gave us a sticker and you gave us those little bib clips, and all of it said MR Running Pains.
MR.
But I was like,
yes.
I like the fact that he calls himself Mr. Running Pains.
Yeah, I'll be going along with it.
But yeah, that's all.
Next one I got here, and if I pronounce this wrong, I apologize. Do you do a Misogi? Misogi every year, and explain that.
Sure. A Misogi takes place once a year. So a Misogi, for those that don't know, is a challenge that you pose to yourself where you'll have a 50% chance of failure. The other rule is you can't die. So
just to clarify.
So yeah, just to clarify, there are two rules there. So anyway, last year was the first year I took on a Misogi. It's something that I wanted to grow from, and I wanted to, have growth and challenge myself in a way that would put me in discomfort. Now, usually Misogi just takes place over a day. Now, it can take place over multiple days. And in December, I did the calendar challenge, which is adding a mile per day. So on the first, you start with a mile. Second, you do 2 miles, so on and so forth. So that was my challenge to myself, my Misogi for 2025. In this year, I took on an Everesting. So I wanted to do an Everesting event. So we went out to a trail and basically did repeats on the trail until I hit 29,000 feet. That was my Misogi for this year, which we did that in May. And it was an incredible experience. It was very challenging, as one can imagine, trying to, do 29,000 feet on one hill repeat. So it's really just finding a challenge for yourself that's going to create personal growth and, put you in more discomfort that you have to learn how to move through it and challenge yourself to, not quit. So, it's a great way to find growth and to experience something that you may not ever try normally. So yeah, you have to have a bit of, of craziness to go for these things, but the things that you pull from them and the memories that you take from them are amazing. So, it's pretty cool.
Well, and I listened to your podcast the entire time you were doing this. I've been pronouncing it wrong. I've been saying Misogi, but
Misogi. Yep.
And I felt sorry for you the last part of December. So think about this calendar challenge.
Oh my God.
He didn't go into a lot of detail, Mike, but he basically, whatever the day it was, that's the miles he ran. So think about that at the end of the month.
Yeah.
24, 25, 20 every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Every day. And I
Every
was
day.
listening to
Every
his
day.
podcast, and he got sick. So you were like doing out and backs
Yep.
from your house.
Yeah.
So you were
I
like
had food poisoning on Christmas.
Puking, right? Yeah, food
Yeah.
poisoning.
Oh my God. I was, I had to go into the house and use the bathroom because I had food poisoning. You know, it was Christmas Day. And here I am trying to do 25 miles, and you know my kids are like, "Dude, it's Christmas." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." Blah. You guys go on without me. I gotta finish this. It took me forever that day, and my wife, bless her, she came out and she walked a few laps with me. She brought me out my poles because I was down to like zero energy because I could not, I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink. I'd sip and throw up. It was. I mean, listen, if you have food poisoning, don't run. Like my wife is a doctor and she was like heavily monitoring my activity to make sure I wasn't about to die. Because again, the number 2 rule is you cannot die. So, I had, a medical expert, overwatching me on this run. But yes, if anything that you take away from this podcast, if you have food poisoning, don't run.
Well, I'm listening
but yeah,
to
the
him
last
tell
few
this-
days were, man.
Yeah, I'm listening to
Go
him
ahead.
tell this story, and I'm like, oh man, I felt so sorry for him. And then that's when I guess I really put 2 and 2 together and realized that he was using friction prescription too, because he started talking about that because as he got in the further miles, he was chafing really bad, and that's where he found friction prescription, and he started using it
for sure.
And it's just so funny though, because I was like, man, I was sitting there doing the math. I was like, he's going to run over 150 miles this week.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. My biggest week was 172, I think was my biggest week. And yeah, those last few days, your 3 days, you're over 90 miles in 3 days. It's tough, man. It really is tough. And I finished off the last day with a double shut-in, which was like, between 8,000 and 9,000 feet of gain. Cause I was getting ready for Fierce Dragon. So I wanted to get something in for, good elevation. But yeah, I mean, it was challenging, and like I said, my wife is the most patient person on earth. I like the kids were off from school, so I knew I'd have a little bit more time on my hands. So, I just, every morning I'd get up and go do my miles. I paced a friend that was doing double, what was that? The Foothills Trail, because he's trying to do a double brooch challenge. So I went out to pace him, and that was one of my days. So it was some tough days. Like it was a great great experience. It taught me a lot about myself and how to dig deep and how to run when I'm tired. So it was a great experience.
So do you have
even though
one
I had
for this year?
some really rough days. I did the Everesting this year. That was my challenge this year.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess the sidebar off that, and just to hit on that, I mean, you've done this for so long and seen the sport grow for so long. Do you feel like there's still races out there, even to this day, and you don't have to name them, that just you go into there like, I don't know if I can do this. I mean, and if you want to, that's fine. But do you have a list of stuff that you're like, I just don't know? I mean, because we've at this point now, we're doing last man standings. I think we've almost invented. I feel like we're trying to create races at this point of challenges and terrain. But what do you think?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's races that speak to me, and there's races that don't. And I just don't do the races that don't speak to me. It's not a slight on the race director or anything. It's just, I just don't have the interest, like I value every race experience and training for that race. And if I'm not excited about it, it makes it that much harder for me to train for it. So, I've learned that over the years. It's I can't do a race just because it's a popular race if I'm not into it. So, whereas like I love Jason Green, but like his races don't speak to me because the courses don't speak to me. So it's if I had a different goal, maybe I would, but like what I want to experience is completely different than the courses that Jason offers. But again, I love Jason Green, so it's nothing to slight on him.
Absolutely,
it's just that's not my style.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. Next one. How long have you been doing your podcast?
I started in COVID. Actually, I started right before COVID. I wanted a way to communicate, my thoughts, experiences, and just kind of put stuff out there that might help other runners. I've had so much feedback of people that listen to episodes and are like, I understood training so much better because I talk about training and how to use your different workouts, how to incorporate recovery, so I try to put out there information that's going to help other runners or speak to those that are going to, give them an understanding of how to implement something within their running, be it strength training or nutrition or physical therapy, whatever it may be. Like it's more for the information of it. So, but I started in 2020. I think my first episode was like either January or February of 2020.
Cool.
You started your podcast when we started our races.
Yeah.
Worst year ever.
Nice.
No, he probably didn't have to have permits like we did, so it was
Yeah,
horrible.
the podcast was probably a great idea
Yeah,
during
what were
COVID,
we
but,
thinking?
but we decided we would start race directing. So that was a terrible idea, but it somehow has worked.
Yeah. Well, and that's when I went full time with coaching. The
sweet.
COVID made it made us make a really hard. I had been coaching. I started coaching in 2000. So I've been coaching for 26 years, but I wanted the run shop to succeed, and COVID really challenged that. I had a co-owner, my business partner, who still owns the business. And we had a tough reality to face. Either we needed to shut down the business or one of us needed to leave the business. And it made more sense for me to leave. And so that's when I went full-time coaching. So the podcast was also a way for me to put myself out there.
I like it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, no,
makes
good.
sense.
Have you been doing the podcast since 2020, or did you take a pause?
I paused in 2023 when I did the Grand Slam. No, excuse me. I paused last year. Right before Western. I had so much going on between coaching high school and my coaching and training. So I paused it before Western States last year, and then brought it back. And then just before Scout Mountain, same thing surfaced. Outdoor track just takes so much out of me with these kids. So I had to pause it a little bit there. So it just seems like the springtime, my plate just gets so full with, we have, 1-2 meets a week. So it just gets really challenging with everything that's going on with outdoor track. So, I have taken 2 pauses, but I think I'm almost near 300 episodes now.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Yeah,
that's good.
definitely.
That's great.
Thank you.
Last question, and this is kind of just, it's as long as you've been running, what is your favorite products and gear? What's your go-to? Like, I'm not going out to this race without that. That's going.
Yeah. Since the Ultra Lone Peak 9 Plus has come out, that's the shoe I've been waiting for years, to have a Lone Peak with Vibram outsole. So that is like my go-to shoe. I love that shoe. That's one of my favorites. I've been a Salomon Advanced Skin 12 fan for forever. I just retired my oldest pack. It was time. it was super holy and probably not doing me any service. So I just upgraded to a new Advanced Skin 12. But that's one of my favorites. So the Advanced Skin 12 and my Salomons, they're my go-tos. I think those are the 2 things that I don't think I could do without in an ultra. That and my friction prescription, man. Keeping me lubed.
Yeah, I love that Solomon Advanced Skin pack. I ran with it for years. Mike, we both actually had the same pack.
Yeah.
And it was, I think we
Nice.
both had the Advanced Skin 5.
Okay.
It was a little lighter, but yeah, it was a great pack, man. Those pockets, you can just shove so much stuff in there.
And you can. Yes, you can.
It's
the Mountain Ultras require so much more gear, so that's why I have the 12. But yeah, the 5 is still a great pack, absolutely.
Mine died at Vol State after that race.
Yeah,
That's when it
a lot of stuff died at Vol State.
I've
That's
got 2 runners doing Ball State this year.
Oh my goodness.
That's where Friction Prescription was born.
Yeah. That was a story.
I ran out of our lube that we were getting because it just took so much.
Gotcha.
And
not a running store in the route when you need one, just a Walmart. So
I had to buy KY jelly to get through to make it to the next town until we could find lube.
Wow.
And then KY jelly was like, man, this is so slippery. This is great. So here comes Friction Prescription
funny.
like a year or 2 years, 2 years later. But it was
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I'm glad you like it. Like it's a small world that you
you.
found Friction Prescription pretty early on, because we literally just
I think it was on an Instagram post.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we literally just launched the business in October of 2025. We had been making it for months, trying to like make sure we had Mike and Matt and all kinds of people testing it to make sure we had the right formula. So we changed it a few times. But you found it literally like a month or two after we launched, and it was funny. Awesome. me and Chris literally just like, we're always sending each other podcasts, and there's no rhyme or reason to these podcasts, Aaron. One day it's AI, the next day it may be Bigfoot haunting somebody, and the next. But then he sent me one of you, and you're doing your Misogi, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to listen to this the whole month, and I literally listened, and then we found out you're using Friction Prescription. I was like, oh man, I was like, we got a message here, and I was like, he has no idea who I am, but awesome. I know who he is. So that's pretty funny. Cool. That's great. I'm glad you like it though. Cool. Appreciate all the positive feedback. And then it's funny you talk about Ultra Lone Peak 9s, 9 plus, right? 9 plus.
Yep. 9 plus. Yep.
Mike and I, when we first started running and Ultras came out, man, that was like the shoe. Ultra Lone Peaks, he loved them, and I loved the Superior. So we both ran in those for years, and switched out of them, and then we have came back to them. And what's funny, it's like full circle now. Ultra sponsors our races, so like we've been running their shoes again, and it's just really cool to see how that company, it's almost like a little lull for just a few years, and then all of a sudden, like here comes a wave of new shoes, and they just nailed it this time. I feel like the shoes are great. But there was like that one moment where like nothing new was coming out, and it was just kind of like the same shoe. They just slightly changed it. But man, the last year, I think last 2 years, they have really made some improvements. I love.
They've been innovating. Yes.
Yep. I'm on the Wild 3s right now, so trying them out.
Nice. That's awesome. Good shoe. Very cool.
Any other questions, Mike?
No, I just want to say, a lot of the products, like you mentioned, to your runners and so forth like that, like I'm with David. David's the guy that you can walk on his kitchen table right now, and it's like, what does Fooster deliver today? And you go in there, there'll be 45 different gels, and he's like, man, you should really try this one. I was like, yeah, but didn't your last race go really well? He's like, yeah, but they got this new stuff, and that's how he operates. And so I tell you, your runner's truthful. You just keep trying stuff in there. Even though it might work, might be something better, and it might be worse, but you just keep trying stuff. So that's what we love about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of been my thing for the last few years. During my easy runs, Aaron, I try something different all the time. Now, during my long runs, I use whatever I'm going to race with. But during my easy runs and stuff, I fuel with, it's like the rainbow out here. There's no telling what I'm coming home with to try. But I really think that's what's helped me with my stomach, because I generally don't have a lot of stomach issues, but it's because every day you're just no telling what's going in my, I just have no idea. And there's a gel I've never even heard of. I'm like, I'm ordering that tomorrow. Like, here we go. And so it kind of makes it fun too, because you just get to play around with stuff. And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, man, change it up. I said, don't change it up on a long run, because that's just not smart. Like, don't do that. Right. But when you're doing easy runs, like that's the best time to play around and do stuff. Like, like.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you get sick in a 6 mile run, you're going to be okay.
Yes.
You get sick in your 20 mile long run, that's a little different story, And,
it's a little different, exactly.
And you're living proof of that from December. From the food poisoning.
For sure.
Well, Aaron, man, thank you so much for taking the time to be on here. One thing that we
thank
do
you guys.
is we always give you a chance to ask us questions. So do you have any questions for Mike and I?
Let's see. I'm sure you guys have talked about your favorite races, but when you think about your intrinsic wise, I like asking my runners what drives you guys intrinsically when you think about it at a race. Like, obviously we have the extrinsic, we want to get a buckle or something like that, but intrinsically, what is your biggest value that can, you can dive deep into and be like, that's going to keep me moving forward?
Wow. That's a good question. He's like, he runs a podcast, you can tell. So I don't, a lot of mine, and I've spoke about this on other podcasts and so forth like that. It's just, the fact that once you have a failure, that's just in me that to not fail again. And, and I've had a near failure recently at a race last year. And you just think like, why am I sitting here? And like you said, once you fix the things you can fix, and if you can't, you figure out how to throw a Band-Aid on it. But when I get to a race, I'm like, we used to look at the buckles and everything else, and now we look at the quality of the event. Or is it good people? Are we going to have a good story from it? And that's why I ask you that question. It's not chasing
Sure.
the same race that everybody used to try to get into. It's chasing that story of, man, what's at this race. And I think a lot of it's just me just not looking at my family or my friends or anything like that and saying, man, I'll let you down. I don't want to let myself down.
Yeah.
But I also know that, they hold me to a higher level, because we don't do this just to, I don't know. I don't do it just because I got nothing else to do. I do it because it drives me. And sometimes I have to sometimes I have to look back at my friends and my family and say, look, you took time from them, you owe them. And I just want to be driven. I love that drive. I love that push of somebody thinking, if somebody thinks I can't do it, that's even more better. I don't know if that answers the question or not, but I love that self-drive inside of like that satisfaction of, that challenge.
It's absolutely. It's different for each of us. So
it's true. And, for me, when I first started running, like my very first even like runs were because I was going through a divorce. Mm-hmm. And like that fueled me for like a year or two of just like, it was my outlet. So racing just became part of me getting to really take some of my, emotions out on the course, like, and then it just, I truly feel like people's whys change as they change.
They do.
And there's the reason you start running can be way different 10 years from now, 10 years after that, 10 years. I feel like every 10 years you're like building a new life.
Mm-hmm.
And, for the longest time, I ran because my daughter was young. I wanted her to see me do hard things. I wanted her to see me hurt. And that'd be okay. And that you can still get through things no matter how hard they are. Life is not easy. And, ultra running tells that story, and she got to see that. And, she became a little bit of a runner herself for a little while. And, I was glad to see that, but she understands it. And I did, that was always my why for the longest time. And then my why became, which is what it is now, of more of, it's just, I've got a pretty good life. It's pretty comfy. It's, I work in an office. We all live in a nice house and blah, blah, blah. And ultra running brings that back down. It makes you realize, it can humble you and make you appreciate the things you have, and open your eyes up to the things that you've been missing. And, when you run, you can go out and do long runs and stuff, and you get that meditation, you get that, you get your alone time. A lot of us like to run by ourselves and with groups, but when you run by yourself, you get to work problems out. You get to think about things, you get to solve things, and you get your time.
Yes.
And I feel like that is something that is kind of missing anymore is like being out in nature and just being by yourself and getting to do that stuff and having to troubleshoot and figure out things on your own and how to make it work.
Yep.
It's just like a puzzle, and I love that part of it. But the other piece is like, it's okay to be humbled. You know, like you can put all the work in the world. And that's the one thing I like is like, I like to really train hard now for one race. Used to, I just race all the time, but now I train really hard for one race. And I love to go out there and push myself as far as I can. I mean, when I first started this, me and Mike did a 50 miler at the Pistol. That was my longest run. I think one of my longest races that I had done at the time. And I did it in like 11 or 12 hours. And, you know, at the time, me and Mike were like, that's great, you know?
Yes.
And it's really cool.
Absolutely.
You know, because we were so young. But, you know, last year,
Yeah.
I ran Yeti 50 in 6.5 hours. And like, I never thought I would get to that point, you know? And
awesome.
that's the
Yeah.
things that I think are really
That's
cool
awesome.
is like, if you can really dial in your craft and you take the time to do it and build it, you can really push yourself to the limit to see what you're capable of. And that is kind of what I'm enjoying right now is like, what am I capable of? You know?
Yes.
So, and that'll change again at some point. That's just where I'm at right now. It will change again in another few years, you know? And, but I'm really having fun with that. So the last 2 years, I've really been focused on running faster, which was never a goal of mine. I just enjoyed running trail runs really hard, trail races really hard.
Yep.
But the last 2 years, it was like, if I pick a fast course like Yeti or Pistol, how fast can I run it? You know?
Sure.
And I've enjoyed that. So it kind of changes, but that's kind of where I'm at right now.
It does.
So.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Well,
I lost my running buddy that would just message me and say, "Hey, we're going to go run this weekend." So he would sign up for everything. I'm like, "Oh, where are we going now?"
Yeah.
But it's all good. It's all good. Like you said, we all go through our different phases and so forth. So I love it.
Well, don't worry.
Yes.
I'm coming back to trails now. I've been running on trails, so I'm actually
I think.
Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
I was going to say, for those that like, you know, they heard that question and they're like, why do I do this? You know, what is my intrinsic? There's a wonderful book by Addie Bracy. And it's called Mental Training for Ultra Running. And it's a workbook. And I suggest it to all runners because it helps you process and think about these things. And also, it really gives you some mental tools that you may not have to help you when you get into those situations and help you problem solve. So, I like, if you don't have that book, I highly suggest it. It's awesome for that purpose.
I think the best thing anybody can do is just fail some at some point. You know, it's I mean, it's not fun failing, but it really changes the game when you do.
Yeah. But, you know, again, that intrinsic value, if it's high enough, you know, that really can push you further than you thought.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's finding that deep intrinsic value to really push forward that you know, that's what's going to make the difference. So, wonderful answers.
Yeah. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Hans and Walmsley this past weekend. Everybody just keeps talking about, can't believe they DNF'd. I think what they did was pretty dang awesome. They tried to they wanted to see how, you know, if they could push the barrier. And that's cool. If you're willing to take that risk, you're willing to blow up. And they did. But man, for the first 50 miles, they killed Western States. Like it was cool to watch. You know, that's the thing. You saying that reminded me of that. Like, don't be afraid to fail. It's okay to do stuff. If that's your goal on occasion, I wouldn't recommend doing that in every race. But if your goal is to like, okay, this is the race, I'm just going to give it everything I've got. I'm going to push it, and I'm either going to do something really great or I'm going to blow up. Yeah. And if you're okay with that, understand that either one can. You know, it's kind of like the Misogi.
Don't die.
It's a 50-50 chance here,
don't die.
You know? And
yes. Well, and you know, I think Zach Miller embodies that whole statement, right? Like he just goes hard, and if he blows up, he blows up. But, you know, you saw him come onto the track and all of a sudden he was motoring to that finish, which, you know, super cool. But
Yeah, and
absolutely.
Look at what he did at Western States.
It's,
It was his first time. And what he did, sixth,
Yep.
fifth? I can't remember.
Fifth. I think he was fifth or sixth. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Totally incredible. Awesome.
Great runner.
Yeah,
great,
for sure.
Great runner. Just all around great runner.
Yes, and great person.
Well, Aaron, we'll leave you alone. You're trying to drive, and I told you 45 minutes to an hour, and we're an hour and 28 minutes. You did ask us a good question.
I figured that would happen. No worries. No worries.
And I keep getting confused.
Thank you guys
every time I see a semi truck drive by, I think you're driving.
Yeah, no. I'm looking forward to turning the AC back on. It's I'm getting my heat training in as we record.
Oh, geez. Well, man, be
all
careful.
good.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute blast.
Yes, you guys too. Great to get to know you better. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Aaron.